I've always struggled with a feeling of imposter syndrome. For those of you that don't know, imposter syndrome was defined in Psychology Today as that gnawing feeling of self-doubt and incompetence coupled with the dread of being exposed as a fraud. I think this imposter syndrome is a very common experience that many people have felt, the sense of being not qualified for the situation you're in, the sense of being a child in an adult world. So I think this is a very common experience that many people have dealt with. And I think especially this is a common experience because of a Neil Gaiman blog post on his website. And I'm going to summarize it here. Neil Gaiman was invited to a gathering for great and good people, artists and scientists, writers and discoverers of things. And at this gathering, he felt very out of place, and he felt like he didn't belong, and he felt like they had made some kind of mistake by inviting him. Well, he struck up a conversation with a gentleman during the course of this weekend, and they bonded over their shared first name. And at one point, this gentleman that Neil Gaiman was speaking to said, "I just look at all these people, and I think, what the heck am I doing here? They've made amazing things. I just went where I sent." And Neil Gaiman replied, "Yes, but you were the first man on the moon, and I think that counts for something." And I'm going to just quote Neil Gaiman directly here for this next part. Because if Neil Armstrong felt like an imposter, maybe everyone did. Maybe there weren't any grown-ups, only people who had worked hard and also got lucky and were slightly out of their depth. All of us doing the best job we could, which is all we can really hope for. Yes, that's right. Neil Gaiman and Neil Armstrong both have imposter syndrome from time to time. And honestly, that makes me feel so much better because those are two great people that I really admire. And if they have imposter syndrome, then I think we all can relate at least a little bit. So when this video is getting posted, it'll be July 19th, which means that tomorrow is the anniversary of the moon landing of Apollo 11. Apollo 11 landed on the moon in 1969, and so I'm somewhat celebrating today the fact that we took one small step. Neil Armstrong took one small step a long time ago. Just like Neil Armstrong said, one small step for him and one giant leap for mankind. And I think we can relate that back to Buddhism in a lot of ways. We should always be trying to improve ourselves and to grow and becoming better people. But it's not a grandiose leap that allows us to become better people. It's all those little tiny small steps that we do every single day. And when we feel imposter syndrome, it's because we realize that we can be better, we can grow. And I think that's an important part of being good people, is knowing I can be better, I can keep growing, and then actually making those efforts to grow. But how do we grow? So in Buddhism, we have the Eightfold Path. And so I want to just quickly run over 3 prongs or 3 spokes of the Eightfold Path that I think can help us grow in this sense anyway. Those spokes are right livelihood, right effort, and right view. First, an aside. I recently listened to a Dharma talk where a monk explained that in English, the word right has a lot of connotations that can be misconstrued. So when we say right, like right livelihood, we're not saying right like morally correct or good. We're saying right like upright, like upstanding, like balanced. So when I say right livelihood, it's not that your livelihood is morally good or correct. It's that your livelihood allows you to find balance and to be balanced in this world. just like Shakyamuni Buddha taught that we should be the middle way, that we shouldn't be hedonistic bliss nor gnawing asceticism. We should approach all of the Eightfold Path with this same sense of middle way, this same sense of balance. Right livelihood can be described as to try to earn our living in such a way that we avoid causing suffering. Now, in Jodo Shinshu Buddhism, we're lay Buddhists. We're not monastic renouncers. And so we have to live our lives in the real world. We have jobs and bills and families and general life stressors. Except for sleeping, a job takes up nearly the most amount of your day. So I would say the most amount of your week is taken up. Nearly 25% of your week is taken up with a job if you're working full time. And so that matters a lot in where we're putting our time and our effort in our life. And so we should be looking for occupations that help us find balance, that help us find help us support our Buddhist practice, and especially help us align with our moral values. Right effort or right energy can be described as to use our energies to promote the overcoming of ignorance and destructive desires. I feel like this is tightly interwoven with right livelihood because we have all this time and all this effort that we're dedicating to a job, a livelihood, and that effort that we put into it should also align and balance and be right. That is a lot of our energies every week if we are not connecting them with our Buddhist practice, if we are not connecting them with this balanced life. And if we can find a livelihood that allows us to, and I quote, help others and ourselves overcome ignorance and destructive desires, I think that's a pretty good use of our energies. And the final spoke that I want to talk about today is right view. And right view can be described as to keep free of prejudice and superstition and to see the true nature of life. When we can take a step back and take a hard look at where our energies are going, what our livelihood is doing, and really objectively determine, does this align with my right view of how the world is, how the world should be? And we can find a moment to take stock. Right view allows us to kind of check in on our right efforts, our right livelihoods, and make sure that they are aligning with our values, making sure they are balanced, making sure they are contributing to growth in ourselves and the people around us and the world at large. Like Neil Gaiman said, only people who had worked hard and also got lucky and were slightly out of our depths, all of us doing the best job we could, which is all we can really hope for. Maybe we can realize by doing our best, our right efforts, our right livelihoods, we can make the world just a little bit better. We can make ourselves just a little bit better. And that growth allows us to realize how precious every moment of our lives are, how precious our life itself is, and that can allow us to express our gratitude for the preciousness of our life and for the opportunity to make our world just a little bit better. We always have an opportunity to grow a little bit. We always have an opportunity to learn a little bit. But don't let imposter syndrome make you feel like you don't belong. You always belong because you, like Alan Watts said, you are like cloud and water. There's not a wrong cloud or a incorrect water. It just is, and you just are. And that's wonderful and precious and unique. And we have an opportunity to grow. We have an opportunity to learn, but we're not an imposter. We are who we are. And I hope that you can carry that with you just a little bit into the rest of your life. I'd like to end my message today with another quote by Neil Gaiman. I hope that in this year to come you make mistakes, because if you are making mistakes, then you are making new things, trying new things, learning, living, pushing yourself, changing your world, You are doing things you've never done before, and more importantly, you're doing something. I've always loved Neil Gaiman's writings and his comics. I've always found them inspirational and very thought-provoking. What authors would you guys recommend? Make a comment below for other authors that I might be able to read and find kind of similar inspiration from. With that, if you like this video, do the algorithm thing and let me know that you want more like this. And with that, thank you for watching my video today. Namo Amida Boots. Allow suppression, especially.